flag. That's a flag. Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to 2023 season episode 11 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. As always, this podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media in 2014. Each weekly episode of the podcast offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and a lineup of special guests all throughout the year. This week, though, we break down the number 12 team's run in the Food City Dirt Race at Bristol Motor Speedway. Steve, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. As I said, fresh off the NASCAR Cup Series 3rd attempt at running a dirt race at Bristol Motor Speedway. And just quick review of it, I'd have to say 3 times is a charm. Is that how that goes? The 3rd time's a charm? Because I feel like out of all of them that they've done, maybe even out of all the truck races outside of maybe the inaugural truck race they did at Eldora, this was probably the best product all weekend long that they've run on a dirt surface in NASCAR since they brought that back.
Yeah, it was cool. Tony Stewart was the broadcast, which is the perfect guy to have on the broadcast. And those who know that he owns Eldora. So those who know also knows that he knows how to prep a track. You've seen him on a tractor before. You've seen him. And when he commented on how well the track was prepped, he knew that they were ready for the racing, and they prepped it properly with the weather they knew was coming, and then the weather they did have beforehand. And it worked out really good. They didn't have to do a lot in between this. You know, they had the 6-minute breaks between the stages and stuff, and they did not have to go out there and do anything extra special. They did a normal thing with track prep, put a little water down, whatever it was. So the whole weekend, the track was in excellent shape. And, you know, with some of the restarts and some of the 3 and 4 wide and getting yawed out and guys catching grip and high lane. I mean, I saw within a lap, guys pass each other 4 times. You know, the guy running the high lane, you know, would get passed underneath him, but then he'd get the momentum off the high lane. And by the start-finish line, he was in front of the other guy again. And, you know, it was excellent to watch.
Yeah, and I got to see this race in person last year. We stayed home this year, but that was the first thing, even Saturday, I noticed. I was like, man, that track looks fantastic. And like you said, they did get a little bit of help from Mother Nature with just enough moisture. Like you said, the crew did really well. And it just seemed like this was the year where the dirt guys, just because of how well the track was prepped, this was the year that the dirt guys were finally going to shine. And you saw that throughout a lot of the heat races. You saw that with the top 10 finishers of this race, with a couple of exceptions that of people that were running pretty strong. One of the other fun things to talk about this weekend that was really a complete surprise, I think, to nearly all of us, is the fact that so Ryan served as Joey Logano's spotter in the Craftsman Truck Series race on Saturday night, and it was just something during, I think it was during the heat races or something, like someone just threw out there that, you know, Joey said, you know, Ryan's spotting for me, and everyone was just like, what did they say? And I go, you know, check Twitter, because I didn't catch it, and I have people messaging us on our platforms and in our Discord talking about it. I'm searching Twitter, and other people are confused, and we're like, did he say Blaney, or is it another Ryan, or is there another spotter named Ryan? And then, yeah, we come out to find, you know, Ryan's the guy up on the spotter stand for Joey in this race. And it became like the Joey and Ryan show for that whole broadcast, which was really, really fun. I hope everybody that followed along with Team Blaney throughout the evening had a good time on Twitter and the TikToks and the Instagrams that we put out, because it was so unexpected. And I think it was just it's a great time had by all just throughout the evening.
You know, usually I listen to Josh during the truck races because he's spotting for Zane. And as I find this out, I'm like, oh, I got to listen to this. And it was really, really good. Truthfully, depending on what you saw, I think Joey started on the second row. Within 2 laps, he was leading. So Ryan didn't have to do a lot of spotting, only on the start of stage 3, because
People stayed
couple
out.
cars stayed out. And at that point, same thing. He was like 4 or 5 back, and then he got up there within a couple laps. But the truth is he definitely did a great job of giving Joey a good idea of what everybody behind him was doing. So a lot of his spotting was, once Joey got to the lead, was, okay, well, that guy's doing this in the corner, that guy's doing that in the corner. They're running 3 and 4 this way, they're running 1 and 2 this way. So there was real good information there. And it was funny because it's the same information I hear Josh give every week. So he was definitely, and then there was a joke, I think, on Sunday that Josh made at the beginning about I don't know much about this stuff or something like that, or I'll try to keep up or something like that. Josh made a joke even, really. But Saturday night it was a blast, and you put a TikTok out. What song did you use on the TikTok? It
was Imagine Dragons on Top of the World.
On Top of the World, yeah.
Because it's just so funny because it was cold. It got down until I think like the high 30s. Obviously they're all the way up. They're in the mountains. They're all the way at the top of Bristol Motor Speedway in the spotter stand. And you could see that Ryan's maybe not used to it. The other spotters around him look fairly bundled up and comfortable. And Ryan had a coat on and stuff, but you could tell. And it was just the perfect thing to where it kind of looked like he was bobbing to the music a little bit. So I had a little bit of fun with that. But like you said, on the broadcast, they kept going to Ryan, and they would go to Ryan and Joey. And sometimes I think it was just so lighthearted. They had both of them kind of talking to each other and talking to the folks in the booth. And if, like you said, if you listen to some of the feedback Ryan was giving, and even when he was on live in the broadcast, he's kind of just painting the picture of what's happening behind him, and letting him know like where the runs are coming from or where people are running. And it just, I know people made the joke that he didn't really have to do anything, and it's true, he didn't do a ton of spotting in traffic, but it was a great way to start what was almost a perfect weekend. So he was even modest, really, because I think they made a joke on the air about how he's doing such a great job, and he said something about it all driver. And then there was like another comment at one point that they were talking to Ryan, and all of a sudden Joey piped in. Yep.
So they were just like totally in tune and having a good time. And it really kind of gave you a little bit of insight into what their relationship was like too. I don't know if Joey asked him to do it or if Ryan asked to do it, but between the two of them, they were a pretty good team.
Yeah, I think it was funny, and Joey gave him, so that Joey bearing the lead, Joey goes on to win the race. Ryan is 1 for 1, batting 1,000 as a spotter in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. At this point, they had a really cool victory lane photo where I think he's holding the sheath of the sword, and Joey has the sword. And but Joey gave him a pretty good shout out in his victory lane interview. And he said at some point, I think Ryan, is keeping it kind of lighthearted up there, keeping him calm, so he thought Ryan did a good job. And I think you're right. We know, based on radio traffic and Joey is the first to admit this, that Joey says he's a totally different person when he's behind the wheel, when he puts that helmet on, and, he runs Ryan really hard, even though they're teammates, and Ryan isn't always going to be super excited with how Joey's going to run him. But it seems like off the track, as human beings, as I don't want to say they're necessarily friends or best friends or anything. You can tell they have a pretty decent relationship, and that's good to see.
Well, I could tell last year at the SRX event at Sharon Speedway too, because Joey, went with them, and Joey was there for the event, and he was there to broadcast, but he was there because of his one of his teammates too. So yeah, he was really that's the first time I really got to talk to Joey too, and it was really he's a really coal guy, really.
Yeah, that's what I'll say. Out of the car, I'm a big Joey fan. In the car, not always necessarily the best, but hey, he's a fierce competitor, and he's a 2-time champion for a reason.
2-time champion. Yeah.
So winning the truck race as a spotter was definitely a highlight of the weekend, but it wasn't the only good thing to happen on Saturday. And I think that we can kick off with our race weekend recap with some of the other events that happened early in the day, and then we can move on to Sunday.
Yeah, well, Friday was supposed to be practice, and they canceled that. They canceled that early. I like it for the dirt because it just kind of would give Ryan some more time. Running some laps. These guys on this type of surface running some laps, getting used to maybe kicking the back end out a little bit more. But they did not do that.
Now it's more of a
So-
traditional dirt weekend where guys only get hot laps, and that's what
Yeah.
happens on the dirt side of the short track world. Asphalt side of the short track world is crazy with practice.
So they do a draw. So here's another thing. Let's talk about this and passing points. Okay, I kind of assumed that they would do timing. They would get a timed lap in and set the field for the heats that way. Because most of the events I ever go to on dirt and stuff, that's what they do. Is these guys they set up the heats and the mains and all that stuff based on timing first. But they did not. They did a draw. And Ryan drew P1 for the second heat. And let's talk passing points. Let's talk to our dirt expert, Adam Rogers, and explain to passing points, Adam.
So it's a little bit, I can see where it's a little bit confusing. And as you said, there's kind of two different ways that they can set up heat races on the dirt side. They do a pill draw, which is kind of what they did with this random draw, or they'll do qualifying. So there's no qualifying in this case. So essentially it was like a pill draw. Now, they don't always use a passing point system on dirt, though, so they didn't have to do this, but they did to try to make things a little bit more fair. If you drew a bad pill and you ended up starting, eighth in your heat race or something, you can still gain a couple of positions and not be hurt too much on your starting position for the main event. So Ryan starts on the pole, from what I understand, as far as points go in the heat race. If you finish, you get points based on your finish, and you get points based on the amount of cars that you pass. So Ryan started on the pole for Heat 2. As long as he held his position in the first position, he would get 10 points just for his finish. But that was the maximum amount of points that Ryan was going to get. If he lost the lead, went to second, he'd get 9 points. And as it go down, 8 points, 7 points, 6 points. People were confused. They're like, oh, if he did that, but then he passed cars to get back to the lead, he'd get a point. No. The maximum amount for him where he started was going to be 10. If you started second, your maximum amount was going to be 11. If you started third, it was going to be 12. So it just varies based on that. So if you started in the sixth position, like Kyle Larson, he passed, or not six, but I forget where he started, but every car that
fifth.
was it something like that. So every car that you pass along the way, you get a point. And then if you won the heat, you get 10 points for winning the heat. So say you passed 4 cars on your way to winning the heat race, you end up with 14 or 15 points. So that's kind of how it worked out for Kyle Larson, Austin Dillon. They passed some cars on their way to the lead. Bubba Wallace won, was it heat 3 or heat 4? And he ended up actually starting, 11th? Ryan wins heat 2. There's actually a little confusion between TV and the race team and NASCAR and posts after the heat races. That said different variations of where he finished. So he was able to start inside the top 10, which I'm spoiling your heat race.
No, that's right. No, that's
your
fine.
heat race
That's
deal.
why.
But
That's why I asked you the question.
But yeah, that's how passing points work. Basically, you get a certain number of points for where you finish, and if you advance your position from where you started, you get a point for each one of those passes you make. So some people didn't think it was fair. I mean, Ryan, when he drew that first pill and they interviewed him before the race, I wish I was starting 5th or 6th, because he knew he had the skills and had a fast car, and he was going to pass some guys. So he would have been in a better points position, but he did what he could do and what he could control, and things worked out okay.
Yeah, he was. He led all 15 laps, and he was. Who was it? Was it Briscoe in his heat? It was Briscoe behind him in his heat, right? Because he was basically managing the gap. It was great to watch, listen to, however you could do it, because Josh was giving feedback based on what line was going on behind him, and when Ryan was trying to run either a similar line or block that line, and they were still 10 car lengths apart as he was doing this, but I thought it was great practice for what is going to happen on Sunday. And
I was people talk about about the attendance this weekend, and the spring race has always kind of been a little bit down. I was just really sad for the truck heat races and the cup heat races that there really wasn't that many people there, and it was on FS2 on TV. So there was really not a lot of people watching this. And it was, I thought maybe it was going to be some of the best racing of the weekend, though I would argue the main event on Sunday was really, really good. So, I thought, the way Ryan attacks a dirt track, because, there's some misconceptions again throughout this weekend that Ryan was a dirt guy because he's a Blaney. Limited, again, we've said it before, limited experience on dirt from when he was really young and testing some sprint cars and that kind of thing. And then actually he ran an SRX race last year too, but it's still more closer to what he's doing here in NASCAR. So he's not a dirt guy. The guy chasing him in that heat race, Chase Briscoe, is. And Briscoe is a guy that was, would run the high side, get it up toward the cushion, and he was making time catching Ryan that way. Ryan is running middle to bottom, trying to keep the car as straight as possible on exit, and that was working really, really well for him. So it kind of just shows you the two different types of styles. And Ryan's style in this heat race and then throughout the main event on Sunday was working out really, really well. But the dirt guys could also find speed in other ways. So it was nice that there was still a balance in the field, even if you weren't necessarily a dirt racing expert, that you could still run pretty well.
Yeah. So they get to Sunday, and Sunday's going to be stages of 75, 150, 250. There'll be no competitive pit stops. So, but the stage break, you pit, you get, I think it was 6 minutes. You can change, that's the only time you could change tires. You could change tires, a tire, if you had a flat tire, during the actual laps. But you would also be losing laps since that's happening too. They start out, and Ryan and Josh are talking about what lines people may do. So they're talking about, how people are going to run, into the turns. And the restarts are wild. 3 and 4 wide cars are yawed. Some of them get yawed out a little where the back end kicks out. Some of them don't. Some of them touch because of that. Some of them don't. So on these restarts, I couldn't keep track of gain 5 positions or lost a position. I just waited a couple laps, and then I tried to see where he settled into. And by lap 3, he's into 10th, and the 5 was leading. At lap 7, he's trying to run a higher line at this point, and he passes the 22, gets to 9th. At lap 9, he passes the 15, he's up to 8th. And then at lap 12, we get a caution for the 22 and the 23, where it's the 24, hit the 22, hit the 23. It's one of those chain reaction deals. The 38 also got into the wall. He cut a tire. Of course, they say on the radio, staying out, because nobody's really going to pit until they have to. Chusco, the leader of the 5, took the top. Ryan took the top here because hopefully that lane moves a little quicker. 22 gets the pit road speeding penalty actually during all this too.
So what do you think of the Choose drone this week?
Oh yeah, the Choose drone. I liked it. I've heard some controversy over it, but I liked it. Stellanarius had to love it because they actually showed every Choose this week because the camera was on the drone. So it's literally right there in the middle of the track watching the cars go left and right in front of it.
I'm just really sad that I didn't jump on the social media thing to get that handle. So somebody kind of immediately got at Choose Drone and somebody got at Drone Choose. So it was pretty much already taken. And I can say that neither of them have done a really good job with it. I'm like, man, I could have had a lot of fun with that over the weekend, but it was pretty funny. And there's some pretty funny memes out there, like the little cloud guy from Mario Kart holding up the little light up Choose. I don't even know what to call that. This basically that big illuminated square that the drone was holding. So honestly, I thought it was going to be really bad. I thought there'd be a mishap. I thought it would crash. I'm sure that guy, I know they get professionals to fly the drones and things, but if that was me, my hands would be shaking holding that remote for that thing. So anyway, I thought it was a fun way to do it. I know there's some complaints on DBC and some other spots about, what if somebody crossed under too late? I'm like, this is already a little bit of a novelty. Get over it, but it was funny. Yeah. Anyway, continue on it. But the Choose drone I thought was kind of cool.
I thought it was cool. So we restart lap 21 by lap 23. He passes the 2 car. He's up to 7th. At lap 25, we pass the 41. We're at 6th. At lap 30, we're battling the 41. So they kind of go back and forth between 6th and 7th. And once again, this is one of those things where the guy in the high lane, he's getting the run off the corner. He gets the momentum. And the guy in the low lane and in the turns actually passes him, and it just kind of is back and forth. But by lap 35, he gets to 7th at that point, and then at lap 38, he finally passes the 41, gets to 6th, gets clear of him. And at lap 39, we had a caution for the 38, 22, and the 51 also. and we got to choose at this point. Five takes the top. Ryan takes the top. The in-car camera is fixed by this point.
Yeah, we didn't mention that.
We didn't mention that.
We kicked off the race with a big Cheddar's logo on the screen. I was like, we didn't pick up Cheddar's as a sponsor, and I don't know that any of our prodding on getting some other folks to at them on social media, but eventually it fixed itself.
It got fixed, so it didn't fix itself. Somebody had to fix it, but it amazes me because somebody is in charge of that. $5 a month isn't a lot of money. Okay. I know it's not a lot of money, but I pay it, and I pay it for those types of things. So, get it together, people, just check it once, just run through it one time, switch to camera to camera to camera and go, oh yeah, that's the right camera. I mean, I couldn't figure that out because they weren't the only one. What I started doing is the same thing I did that other week where we had the issue. And as I started looking for the cars that were running directly behind Ryan, and I don't remember who it was, but one of the other cars had the same issue. They had somebody else's in-car camera. And I'm like, that's two of them. I mean, and they're not even like reversed. Like if it was like reversed, like, okay, I went to the 8 camera and the 8 camera was actually the 12 camera. I'd be like, oh, okay.
That was my first thought, but that wasn't.
But it wasn't. Nope. So
all I got to say, Steve, is this is a first world NASCAR fan problem here, because we had no in-car cameras for the last decade that we could access. So
I remember that I'm the guy that used to pay, I don't know how much a year for Race View.
Yeah. Still miss that.
I totally missed that cartoon version of the cars and so forth, because they did a great job of showing you what you were gaining and losing on the guy in front of you. But that's for decades ago too. So we restart lap 46. By lap 47, we're up to P5. And at lap 50, we're battling the 20 for fourth and the 41 for sixth. So the three of them are actually going back and forth now. But lap 54, we passed the 20. We're up to fourth. And lap 58, we did caution for the sixth. Ryan's saying he's way loose. Jonathan says we'll swing a couple numbers at the break. And at the choose for this one, the 5 takes the top, Ryan takes the top. He gives up a row here because he feels it's better to be on the top lane than try to battle from the low lane. The restart lap 65. So they got 10 more laps here to the stage break. Sorts out the P5 here, but lap 75, we get a caution there, and it's a caution for the 9. The 5 wins the stage, and Ryan finishes 5th in stage 1. So we get stage points there.
And is this the first time in like 3 races or so that the 12 team has scored stage points? So it's been a little while.
Yeah.
And luckily it's a decent chunk. It's not, you didn't finish 9th or 10th. You finished, 5th. And I thought it was really promising. We talked last week about Ryan finishing in the top 10 in this race, the first 2 years of it. And, we see him start, back of the top 10 in this race his way up to 5th by the end of this first stage. And I think this is showing you he's pretty good at this type of track, which is, only once a year, but it's good to see that it's not just a fluke. Some finishes in this race have been kind of flukes over the last couple of years. He's been consistently good on the dirt at Bristol.
Now this is interesting because the truck race on Saturday, the first stage break, everybody pitted except 4 cars, and then those 4 cars on the next stage break end up having to pit. So you had to pit once. And this was the same thing here. I think everybody was on a strategy, at least originally, was on a strategy of pitting now, and then when we start the second or go to the second stage, we're just going to stay out. But that changes too. So they work on entry and exit. They tighten it up a couple numbers. 4 cars stayed out, the 45, 23, 19, and 77. They got 6 minutes to work on the car. Jonathan tells them the tires look really good, which is kind of cool. But they do get fresh tires, which is smart here. Somebody else doesn't do this later on. Ryan, here's a great one. Ryan asked for a tear off. Now we're watching the in-car camera, right? I don't know if you remember this or not, but when they took that tear off, wow, what a difference. It was like night and day. I know it's the dirt on the tear off, but boy, when they did that, I'm like, wow, it's like he's got no window there all of a sudden. It's so clear.
Like at road courses in places like Darlington, yeah, they pull that tear off, and you're like, whoa, we're back in HD again.
Yeah. And somebody was over there. Might have been Raymond Fox, actually, the third. It was squirting and he got the Windex on there and clean that sucker off even some more. So we're going to choose here. The 45 takes the top. Ryan is in ninth. He takes the bottom. We restart, of course, at lap 76. Sorts out the P10 here. And then we get a caution at lap 82 for the 13. Johnson says, be cautious with fuel. Now, this once again is like at the next stage break. Are they just going to stay out and run the rest of the race? P10 for the cone. Lead of the 45 takes top. Ryan takes the top. Restart lap 87. He's up to eighth. And then we get a caution at lap 89 for the 34 car on his spinorama. You spin me right round. Okay, I'll stop.
And that's going to be the first of many for him.
For him. Josh tells me that was a good restart, by the way, and Ryan says they dialed up some rear brake in there. So that's what he was doing to help himself a little bit. He's in eighth here for the choose, takes the top. Ryan takes the bottom, and they restart. He gains a row doing this. So once again, now he's enough guys aren't taking the bottom, so he takes the bottom and moves all the way up to like what I think would be 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth, I think, at that point. So restart lap 95, sorts out to P7 here. And then lap 97, we get the 99 spinning with no caution, but the 22 is smoking. 16 has damage. At lap 100, he passes the 41. He's up to sixth. At lap 103, the 41 passes Ryan here. He's in the seventh. I'm sorry. There's a caution for the 41. Ryan's up to seventh. I'm sorry. So, okay, we do the choose now. For 45 takes the top. Ryan takes the bottom. He gains a row again on this. Jonathan and Ryan back and forth discuss the RCR cars and how they're able to run a higher line. And they're talking about the throttle pickup coming off the higher line. We get a restart lap 112. Sorts out to eighth here, but it's 3 wide during this. At lap 115, he's up to sixth, though. At lap 118, he's battling back and forth the 20 between sixth and seventh. At lap 124, he's battling the 14 between seventh and eighth. So he's lost a spot, but he's still battling. At lap 126, we had a caution for the 6 car. Ryan's in seventh, and the 45 is still leading at this point. Brian talks about trying to get better in the high lane. I don't know if I'll have this in the notes later on, but I'm going to say it now. TV at this point notices that big rut in 3 and 4, and Ryan, as the race goes on, uses that more and more. And actually, I think there is a comment coming later on about that. We'll get to. For the choose at this one, 45 takes top, Ryan takes the bottom. He gains a row again. So we restart lap 132. He sorts out to seventh on this restart. And at lap 135, he's in eighth. Lap 136, he's back to 11th. So things kind of sorting out not too good here. I may have had a bobble even, but he's racing the 48 and the 31. At lap 140, he passes both of them, gets to ninth. So he gets his rhythm back. The 8 is leading at this point. So the 8 got to the lead. At 142, the 45 takes the lead back. So lap 146, the 10 car passes. Ryan's in eighth. Lap 150, the 45 wins the stage, and Ryan is in eighth. Jonathan and Ryan talk about plowing tight here, and the strategy changes. So they go ahead and pit, and 9 cars stay out. So the swing that they took was a big swing based on the fact that they thought they were going to stay out the whole time. And they decided that it was a little too much. So they go ahead and pit. They're going to get the fresh tires too by doing this. And Jonathan says, we're going to go back on the changes. I'm going to wedge a little bit more. And I didn't have it in the notes here, but this is the 5 car actually pits now too. And for some, I don't know, should I use the word stupid reason? It doesn't take tires. I know the guy's confident in his abilities as a dirt car driver. He's probably the best sprint car driver on the planet. And definitely the best sprint car driver in NASCAR.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't you take tires?
I think he was really, really happy with the handling of his car at that moment, and he probably just didn't want to mess with anything. I do think the right call was made by the 12 team. Now, I know the 20 stays out here, and we know what kind of happens in the end, but I think that happened for different reasons. But I think with the way Ryan's car was handling at this moment, why not come in, change the tires, and make any other adjustments that you can, because this is a long run to the finish here. This isn't a short stage. So,
no, a couple things, and we'll get to it, what happens to Ryan at the end, and everybody knows that at this point. It's not a spoiler, but NASCAR makes a huge deal of the finish and all the dirt car guys at the finish. And they make a huge deal of a couple of the cars that stayed out. But what we see before that last caution that is Ryan passes a bunch of guys. And it's a couple things. One, he did pit, and they did make changes. Two, the guys who didn't pit were having problems. They were having problems. The tires were getting bad. They were trying to run a high lane. You saw guys slap on the wall. Ryan was running consistent laps and getting past them. So really, really in the long run, 8 more laps would have been real interesting to see. But we'll get to that here in a couple minutes here. So we are like 15th for the choose now because of those cars that stayed out. The leader is the 20. He takes the top. Ryan takes the bottom, and Ryan gains a row on this. They restart lap 151. Sorts out to about 13th by lap 153. At lap 156, we get a caution for the 5.
Which that's a continuation from an incident earlier in the race. And I mean, you mentioned a couple of times about Ryan battling with the 41. The 41 was running everybody extremely hard all race long, and that's not something I want to complain about. But he got squeezed into the wall by the 5 early in the race, I think, because of that. And I described it to you as man, he's tailgating everybody. He would run the same line as everybody else and just stay an inch off their bumper the entire time. I don't know if he just wanted people to get out of the way and not actually try to pass or whatever. He made the 5 a little bit mad, and then in this instance, he may or may not have made a retaliatory move, because in that early deal with the 5, the 41 actually broke or bent a toe link that they had to replace later on in the race. And so now they're back around in the back running together. 41 kind of squeezes the 5 up into the wall this time, and it looked like the 5 maybe came down to show his displeasure and then wrecked himself. So that was interesting. The driver of the 41, I have a lot of respect for on the modified side. He's a prolific modified racer. He's pretty popular in the grassroots level, but he's really testy. He gets a little bit angry. He's gotten angry in the truck series. He ran a couple of races last year and got wrecked out of some wins, and he's not afraid to put people on blast. So, but he was also one of the first drivers here to test this post Denny Hamlin penalty deal, to where he said he just got loose. I just got loose.
I got loose. So we choose here the leader of the 20 takes the top. Ryan takes the top. They restart. Like I said, there's 4 wide sometimes at this point. The restarts at lap 161. By lap 166, Ryan is still 12th. At lap 168, he's battling the 8 and the 45. Gets to 11th. At lap 172, he passes the 1 car, gets to 10th. At lap 176 is for the 5 car, and the 41 hitting the 5. So actually, there's where they hit each other. I think earlier was just a spin out. I think this was the thing where they questioned the tires. Up to 11th here, the leader is the 20. He takes the top. Ryan takes the top. They restart lap 181, 3 wide again with the 24 and the 45. And at lap 190, Ryan says he thinks he may have a tire going down, and that he thinks the 45 hit him and he cut it. So all of a sudden, I'm on high alert. We're watching that camera carefully. But no, we just keep racing, and that's a good news. Lap 195, he passes the 34. He's up to 10th. At lap 197, he passes the 10. He's up to 9th. At lap 200, we get a caution for the 42 car. Then here it is. Ryan talks about hitting the bump in 3 and using it to help drive off. And he makes a comment about it getting a concussion because he's hitting his head as he does it. Don't know if he's hitting his head on the roof or hitting his head just in the seat, but yeah, he's hitting it pretty hard. But he is using it the way they were talking on TV, he's one of the main guys that was going in there, making sure he got into it just right with the right rear and helping set the car and helping his drive off.
The other thing with that rut, just in general, with the way it works out sometimes, is the reason it's there is because there's some moisture there. So that's just another spot. I mean, at this point in the race, that track is super slicked up. You could see early in the race, it's like this reddish orange dirt. By this point, it looks almost like a blacktop asphalt track with dirt on the sides. Yeah. But in that rut, it wasn't picking up as much of that slick stuff, and it was still a little bit of moisture in there. And on a dirt race, where there's moisture, there's grip. And like he said, he's digging down into there to get drive off out through that corner.
Yeah, there was a couple comments on social media, and I don't know if they were being funny or maybe they just don't know. They were like, "Oh, they wore it all the way down to the track. All the dirt's gone." Like, I think they were being serious. A couple of them, I'm like, no, that's rubber. That's rubber. That's actually accumulated. So we're P9 for the choose here. The 20 takes the top. Ryan takes the top here, and they're restarting at lap 207. So the laps are running down now, and this is the fun part of the race for me. And it could have stayed green. I would have been happy with it here. At lap 209, he's up to 8th. By lap 210, he's in 6th. Lap 215, the 14 is battling the 20 for the lead. At lap 220, he's catching the 38 and the 3. At lap 221, he passes the 38. He's up to 5th. The 20 is still leading here, but at lap 225, he passes the 14. He's up to 4th.
He's just picking guys off. This is so
picking
fun
guys off. And this is fun because he's in that middle lane. He's doing what we're talking about, where he's getting that back end and he's setting it and taking off. And you're watching the guys trying to run this high line, and it's fun to watch when it's working right. And the TV notices that the guys are slapping the tail end on the wall. They're slapping it on the wall. And you can do that if you gently do it. But a lot of guys are literally slapping it. And when they're slapping it, they're losing the momentum. And these are guys Ryan's passing. At lap 227, same thing. 3-car slaps the wall. Ryan goes by him. P3. So 230, we're about 3 seconds back of the lead, and we're starting to catch. Watching
it was coming. I thought he had a chance at second, at least. 2 to 3 tenths. We're starting to catch these guys, and we've got 2 guys in front of him with the 45 and the 20 who, if somebody pointed it out in the Discord just in the last day or so, they could have taken each other out. That's the other thing. And Ryan has been a beneficiary of that before. We the Roval, where 2 really skilled, talented drivers tried to take it and then took each other. So that's all I was watching for. Let's get to these next 20 some laps and see what happens, But at lap 235, we get caution for the 8. And this is we didn't talk about this that much, but I almost feel like in this race, there was too many cautions and not enough cautions. And it's just such a weird thing to say. And maybe we could have waited another couple minutes and got into this more, but very early on in this race, they were quick trigger on throwing a caution for maybe some stuff they didn't need to. And then I think they over adjusted, and then they just stopped throwing them for some things. But then this one was kind of a mystery because the 8 actually spins down onto pit road. And for the most part, at the second half of this race, if somebody spun, so we talked about the 34 spinning, I think he did that 2 more times after that, and they didn't throw cautions because he kept moving. The 5 spun to the bottom of the track, didn't keep moving. They threw a caution. So I'm like, okay, I guess I can kind of see if you just stop and you're not going to make an attempt to keep going, they'll throw a caution. But the 8 here spins and he spins down toward pit road and keeps going towards pit road, and they throw a caution here. And it was just kind of devastating for me because Ryan's picking guys off. He's up to 3rd. He's gaining on 2nd. And I thought maybe he'd have a chance to get into the picture for the final couple laps or capitalize on a dive bomb by the second place car like we saw last year and when Kyle Busch picked up the victory. So I thought, we were robbed from a really good finish here if things would have just played out naturally. And it's difficult. I understand the guy that's up in the tower has he or she has a lot on their shoulders on deciding these cautions or not, but man, that would have been one I probably would have held the flag on.
Yeah. Ryan says, already, let's go get it. The optimism and the excitement's all there because you know that anything can happen from this position. The best part is watching the choose cone on the camera, because the way it usually works is Josh will tell Ryan we're 10th for the choose. Okay. And then Josh counts out 1 bottom, 2 bottom, 3 bottom, 4 bottom. So Ryan knows, like, okay, So if it's up to him and it's 4 bottom, then if he goes bottom at that point, he'll be 5th bottom. He'll be 9th instead of 10th. So that's generally how it works. Of course, there's only 2 cars in front of Ryan.
Yep.
And Josh doesn't really have to say anything. And as I'm watching it, okay, the 20 goes to the right, the 45 goes to the right. All of a sudden, Ryan's on the front row, and I'm thinking, "Oh, this is Michigan 2 years ago."
Yeah, I was going to say Michigan, and we said thank you at that point, right?
That's right, and I said thank you. I
see on Twitter and talking to you, Ryan's words, like you said over the radio, he was probably as pumped up as he's been all year long. Excited for this opportunity because they've had so many things like taken away from them this year. He had a chance to take it into his own hands, make his own destiny here, and restart on the front row with just a handful of laps left in this race. And the excitement was kind of palpable. And it's like that's one of those points where I'm up off the couch because I just can't. I just get so nervous for what's about to happen, and it's just excited that you have a talented race car driver like Ryan with a shot to win in a race that he was just picking off every car in front of him.
The best part now is, okay, so you took the 20 car and the 45 took the high lane, right? They're both running the high lane these last bunch of laps. That's where their grip is. That's where their drive off is. That's where they're running. So first off, I'm thinking if Ryan can get to the turns 3 and 4 and be able to hit that rut like he's been hitting it and getting the run, well, he's already 2/10 of fast. He's been the last 10 laps going into this 2/10 faster than the leaders. He was catching them. Now, 3 seconds behind them, he wasn't going to catch them by the end of the race, but he was catching them at that point. So now all of a sudden he's that much closer to them, able to do that. Plus, you've got 2 guys in the high lane who both been running the high lane. One of them is going to figure out how to get underneath the other one or around the other one. Once again, could have 2 of them hit each other, get right by them, take the lead, maybe not have a flag, maybe have a flag and one restart, whatever. All the things are there. All the things are there. So we restart lap 242. And, Jonathan actually says 8 more laps of fun.
Yeah.
And then I use an expletive in my notes here that I cannot read on the air because it's a family show. But the 14, what did he call it? He called it himself. He called it an idiot move.
An idiot move.
An idiot move. He was told numerous times, he says, not to go over those bumps and all this other crap, which are just excuses. And you know what they say about excuses?
Yeah.
Right? Everybody has one. And they all stink. This is lack of respect again. This is just like road course racing again, okay? We're all bunched up. We got nowhere to go. We're going to try and bump the guy in front of us and see if he'll move, if he'll wiggle, if he'll do whatever. Ryan was literally probably going to try and race into 3 and 4 to hit that rut. He wasn't going to hit anybody. He was going to try and get to that rut and see if he can get that kick out of 3 and 4 and maybe get nose to nose with the guy above him and maybe race him into 3, and maybe get clear of him in a lap or 2. And we never got to see any of that. And the whole thing about the inconsistency and the cautions really comes up here too. Now, if they were to throw a flag here for a caution, it doesn't really help Ryan one bit. It re-racks him. It re-racks him, but it puts him in the back. It gives us a green-white checker probably because it would have taken a couple laps to set the field and all that crap. So whether there was a caution or not really doesn't help anything anyway. He got it righted. He got back on the lead lap. He got himself a 23rd place finish out of it, which is not where it should have been. If he finishes 2nd or 3rd, that's where it should have been. If he had a chance to race for the lead, that's where it should have been. People can make excuses for the 14, and he can apologize all he wants. He's expecting retaliation too, which is kind of funny, which tells me something because he might have went to Ryan in private, and Ryan might have told him something for him to expect retaliation too. So, the 20 car does win the race, by the way. Well, we're talking about our misery.
And we mentioned the dirt guys. I think it was like 6 out of the top 10 were guys that were heavy on dirt. Ryan would have spoiled the party up there by being the one that wasn't. One thing to talk about the 14 that's been brought up on some other podcasts that gave us a little bit more insight is the fact that they're talking about his radio prior to that restart, and he said something over the radio like slingshot engaged right before the restart. And after he makes his self-described idiot move, he's coming on and asking his spotter, like, did Ryan just stop in the middle of the corner? He hit him and stopped, right? And his spotter came back on, and it's funny. I don't know if it's still funny now, but it's something. And said, no, I think it was a little too much slingshot. And he said it was basically kind of quiet after that. So the only thing I heard as far as any communication, I wanted a camera on the 12, the driver of the 12, to see if he was going to make that stroll from the back of pit road all the way up to the front, because the 5 or the 14 ends up finishing in the top 5. So I did hear on the Sirius XM post race show, they did say that Ryan and Chase talked on pit road, but they didn't elaborate on any of that. They just said they said they had some words, but he didn't say it in a way of like, no, they had words. Like, no, they talked after. And I don't know. I've seen a lot of stuff in response to this. It's funny how social media gets, where people are blaming Ryan for this because they say he's not aggressive enough. And I'm like, I don't know if you've been paying attention this year, but Ryan's been he's turned the aggression scale up like to 300% this year compared to what he used to do. I don't know what they want. I don't want to see Ryan go down pit road and deck him. Like, I don't know.
Here's the difference too about aggression scale. Okay, when we've seen Ryan use the bumper, he's used it properly. Yep. He's used it as, I'm the faster car. I'm the faster car. I'm coming up on you, and the reason I'm able to hit you is because I'm the faster car. Get out of the way. That's the proper way to use the bumper, okay? It's not just like, I'm going to use the bumper any chance I get, because if I get you to wiggle, I can get by you. And that's the difference. That's the difference of the respect factor. That's the difference of the drivers. The 14 just got big doughy eyes because he was near the front and he thought he could, and really truthfully, I bet you this is what he really thought, because he made excuses on the radio, but he really thought, if I can move Ryan up into the 2 guys above him, I can pass all 3 of them.
Yep.
That's what he thought. And then once again, we talked about waiting a day or two to do the podcast and maybe I could calm down, but no, it didn't work. It did not work. I'm really still mad at this guy. But what you said about aggression is true. Ryan is aggressive. He's had more aggression. We've seen it because of the in-car camera. But the difference is, you come up on somebody, you're running better lap times than them. You are having a problem getting around them because they're blocking your line. You hit them once and you hit them twice, and you're not trying to wreck them. You're trying to wiggle them a little maybe, but you're not trying to wreck them, and you're trying to let them know, hey, dude, I've been patient long enough. I'm faster than you, and you'll see when I get around you. And that's generally what happens, too. When Ryan gets around whoever it is, within 2 laps, he's 3, 4, 5 tenths in front of him all of a sudden. So, there's a way of being aggressive and using aggression, but it's only when it's proper. Yeah. A lot of these things that's happening, they're all happening at the end of these races when you get a late caution, and then everybody thinks, well, if I move a couple of guys out of the way, I can get the better finish. And it's rude.
Yeah, and I don't know what people want. I mean, I'll say what Ryan does is calculated aggression. I think that's what you're describing. I saw a lot of people wanting him to storm down pit road and go fight the 14. They want him to, go dump him at Martinsville. All I have to say is, how's that working out for guys that have been doing that the last, 10 or so years? One, you just turn a whole fan base against you. I like the fact that we go to races and Ryan gets overwhelmingly cheered. I don't want to go there and have him, we talked about, Joey being a nice guy and everything. Joey's made a lot of mistakes early on in his career that turned a lot of people against him. I don't want Ryan coming out for driver intros and getting booed. I don't want him to be that, none of the Blaney drivers are guys that are outwardly going out there after a race and getting in physical altercations with people. So, and I think the closest thing we've ever even seen with Ryan, I think it was a discussion he had with, I think it was Kevin Harvick after a race once, where, maybe just mild shoves, not even a shove, like a chest tap. I don't even know what to call it. That's about the closest that Ryan's gotten to fighting. And it just, I don't know, it's funny to me to see how angry other people get and then turn their anger toward Ryan for not being angry enough. And I don't know. I'd rather see this calculated aggression. I think that's what keeps him consistent. That's what keeps him in the hunt for championships the last couple of years. And We know that just there's a few things here and there that he needs to do to get to that next level, and I'd rather see that than see him focused on, who's the guy he needs to get payback on or things like that. So
yeah, this week in Martinsville is a great place for this to watch this too. You'll see guys who will get bumped out, and I don't want to say bumped out of the way where they spin them out, but they'll get bumped, and a lap later they'll get bumped, another lap later they'll get bumped. And the reason is because I'm faster than you. I'm getting off the corner better than you are. That's why I'm able to get to you. And they do it enough to the where whether the spotter has to go tell the other spotter or something, but they'll get out of the way. Most of the guys race that way during the regular part of the race. It's always the end of the race where this stupidness happens.
So just to put a bow on this weekend at Bristol on the dirt there, this is the third year in a row they've run on dirt on Bristol. This is the second year in a row they've run it on Easter weekend. From comments pre-race, post-race, I would say a majority of the drivers are against this race happening on Easter weekend. A lot of them seem on the same page about that. And then I would say they're about split, maybe 50-50 on running dirt in general. There are some vocal people like Kyle Larson that said, they're asking him throughout the weekend if they should do this race again. And he said, no, we shouldn't be running this at Bristol. And then they said, oh, what track would you want to go to? And then he said, we shouldn't be running on dirt at all. Christopher Bell's pretty pumped. He just won the race. He's saying, it's won it over. A lot of those guys, and I think success has to go into this. They said that they really enjoy the race. What are your thoughts on that? I'll share mine as well on whether this race, I mean, there's a couple of things here. Are you good with the whole running on Easter thing? I thought when we attended there last year, they did a really good job as far as, for people that are faithful, that celebrate Easter for religious reasons, had, a church service to go to, and they had a huge concert and everything involved in that. I thought they did a really good job with that as far as at track things. They run it at night to try to give people time to celebrate the holiday in the morning. So the Easter thing doesn't bother me as that much, but I know it bothers a lot of people in the industry. But what are your thoughts kind of on this weekend overall? And should they continue it at Bristol? Should they move it? Should they scrap dirt altogether?
I think I like the dirt period. I think that having one race on dirt is really a cool thing. I think that these guys are good enough. And I know this race had a bunch of dirt guys near the front, but Ryan would have spoiled that party if he was in there, and Ryan could have won the thing really realistically. So these guys really show off how good they are. Kyle Busch, was running third, and then he won the thing last year. So Joey, once again, not a dirt guy, won it the first year. But the reality is I also like Bristol as a whole, and having two Bristol races on the regular surface is great. Both of them, one during the day and one at night, was always a good thing. NASCAR will tell you the attendance was down at the spring race no matter what, and it's still down. Can we get to a dirt track, a regular dirt track, a dirt track that, can we get back to Eldora? Would Eldora be big enough to handle the Cup Series? I would like to see that. As far as Easter goes, if we have to race on a holiday of some sort like that, why don't we just do it Saturday night? What would hurt a Saturday night race, and then that way Easter Sunday we're off? That part I don't get either. I know the industry itself is they're only getting one off weekend, although the dirt race, because of the way pit stops are, the pit crews get the weekend off, which is nice for them. But why not make it somewhere on the East Coast, once again, somewhere close to, North Carolina anyway, and do it on Saturday night so that on Sunday, they're gone. And I'm just saying a race in general. I'm not saying a dirt race, but just a Saturday night race somewhere on the East Coast so that these guys can get back home for Easter. And what's wrong with Saturday night racing this early in the year too? What else is going on a Saturday night? In the fall, I know it's tough because you've got college football on Saturday nights. But right now, as long as the weather is not a major factor more than anything else, So yeah, the only thing I would say is let's keep doing dirt, but let's do it at a dirt track. one time a year. I don't care what Larson said. Larson, I hate to say this, he looks like an idiot. And I say that because he's had 3 chances to win this thing. He's the best guy on dirt in a sprint car, and he can't win it.
And he was run good. He's run really well, but then made some aggressive mistakes.
He has made mistakes.
Yep.
His own mistakes. And that's why he's like, well, we shouldn't do it. Now, buddy, you should start to man up a little bit and win one of these darn things. Joey Logano won one. What's that tell you? Joey Logano might be a better driver than you overall. Maybe.
So
he did win a championship recently.
Yeah. I agree with you mostly on a few of those points there. One, I thought, like I said at the top of the show, this race was incredibly exciting, incredibly entertaining. Guys running all 3 lanes. Like you said, 3 wide, 4 wide, and this wasn't only just on restarts. Like, this was happening throughout the race. There was people coming and going. There was strategy with people staying out, people pitting. I think it had almost everything that you would want it. And I even saw like some of the people that are normal kind of detractors of this race saying, you know what? I don't like that it's on Easter, and I don't like that it's on this Sunday or this time of year and all this stuff. But, the race was actually pretty good. I think compared to the first race, I think the next gen car actually, which did not see this coming. I think the next gen car races a lot better on dirt than the Gen 6 car did previously. So I think that's helped out a lot. Next point that I agree with you on, I'd rather see this at a purpose-built dirt track, and not because I think the race will be any better. I think what we saw is probably about as good as it's going to get, and if it was like that everywhere else, that's awesome. But I would just rather see it on a purpose-built dirt track that's already out there, that maybe NASCAR can give a little bit of money to upgrade some facilities. Like they've done.
It's too bad Sharon Speedway is a little bit bigger. Right?
Yeah. They would take over the town of Hartford, Ohio, if they were to try to do a NASCAR race there. But I think Eldora has the space. I think they definitely have the capacity to do it. I don't know if NASCAR is cool with a majority of fans, sitting on camping chairs up on a hill. The place that could easily hold it, but I think would result in a horrible race, is Knoxville. Like, Knoxville has a ton of grandstand space and suites and everything that you would need to probably hold a race. And they've held truck races there, just like Eldora has as well. But I just don't think, with the way that the trucks ran there, Knoxville is a lot more. It doesn't have nearly as high banking at all as Bristol does, or that Eldora does. So I'd rather see them. I want them to keep a dirt race on the schedule. I think it's highly entertaining. I don't want it to be at Bristol because I want 2 races on the concrete at Bristol. When you talked about TV, or you didn't talk about TV, when you talk about running this on a Saturday night, it's absolutely because Fox does not want to run this on a Saturday night. We saw even during the pandemic, when there was no sports but NASCAR, they had run Saturday night races. They ran races during the week at night, and the TV ratings tanked. And that was when there was like nothing on TV to compete against. They don't even know. Like, people can't really even explain what's happening and why Saturday night races aren't necessarily working. Now, the Bristol night race has a lot of clout to it, I think, and prestige, and people will tune into that in mass. So that's still on a Saturday night right now. They did this whole Easter thing, I think, just because the way the calendar was falling. And outside of it being Masters Week, which did wrap up early, it was the only thing on TV in prime time on a holiday when a lot of people are at home. The TV ratings came out for this year. Last year, this race got about 4 million viewers. This year, it was 3.5 million. So we lost about 500,000 viewers on this. So, I mean, maybe there is something to, I don't know what the figures were on other Saturday night races, but I think if you want to know why they're not running it on Saturday night, it's because Fox doesn't want to do it.
Well, I think the TV, something is wrong, because the TV ratings are down consistently every week right now. So as far as that goes, I don't know what they got to do, but they got to do something different. They've already tricked up the sport to begin with all kind of different things to try to help the TV viewership. Stage racing, to begin as a whole, was an idea to help, give the viewers a snack break and a pee break and the thing to kind of, and then stage racing. So it gave you extra racing within the racing and, all these different things. And at first these things did work and they took off. Now the ratings are just down as a whole, the whole season. Every week I hear about ratings and they're all down no matter what they've done. So I don't know what to do to help that.
And honestly, that's not necessarily just a NASCAR problem. I understand the NBA has ticked up a little bit this year. But almost everything else is down. Baseball's down. Even the NFL last year, which has monster ratings, was a tick down a little bit, but not like, I mean, their ratings are so outrageous that it doesn't necessarily matter that much. So it's kind of an industry trend overall. So I don't know what the answer it is, what it is for TV, but honestly, 3.5 million viewers is still a ton. So it's not like they did bad.
Yeah.
They just didn't do as good as last year. And I don't know. I get it seems to be, Marcus Smith, they were interviewing him over the weekend. That's the president of SMI is kind of saying he wouldn't say. So the other 2 years, they're like, yeah, we're coming back. We're doing dirt. We're coming back doing dirt. They're really excited from the first year to second to do it. This time they're like, we're still talking it through. So I think there's some things that could happen in the future there. We talked a little bit offline about maybe, is it outrageous enough to think that they would ever take the spring Bristol date and give it to Nashville Fairgrounds? There's a lot of legal hoops and government hoops they have to run through to even be able to renovate the fairgrounds and bring that back as a viable track for the Cup Series. But could they ever take this date and move it there? I don't know. They own Nashville Super Speedway, so maybe the logical thing would just be to take that date. So I don't know. I'll just say be careful what you wish for, because if they do go to concrete next year and the attendance is down, they're not afraid. I mean, I know Bristol might be one of those sacred cows, but I don't think the spring race is. So they're not afraid to move that around to somewhere else. Chicago, say the Chicago Street Course race goes really well and they want to take that date and give it back to Road America. What if a Bristol date goes away? Just so be careful what you wish for. If you really want to see this race go away.
Yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere, to tell you the truth. It may just lose the dirt between now and then. One more thing about the ratings, and I probably should have said this during that whole rant. It's that ratings are down as a whole every year to year because there's more out there. There's 60 new channels that pop up. People are watching TikTok like crazy now. By the way, we have a TikTok.
What?
So, there's just so much more to do. And like you said about that rating is still a good rating. It's true. That rating is really still a good rating because you compare it to back in the day when there was only 4 channels or 3 channels, or your cable box only had 13 channels. It's totally different now. Everybody's cable box or their satellite has 100 some channels, and they could pay-per-view something, and you can watch a first run movie now out of your house. So yeah, ratings are kind of weird to look at. You say they're down from last year to this year, but from last year to this year, things have changed to a certain extent. So it's an ever moving target, I guess, too.
Yeah. And NASCAR still this year, this time of year before football starts, is still winning the weekend pretty consistently on viewership. The Cup Series race has been the most watched thing over the weekend. It did get blown out of the water because of the Masters falling on the same day, which I think the Masters got 12 or 13 million, but that's you're not going to beat the Masters. So it's still, like you said, it's still a good rating. It's not funny, but just that echo chamber that Twitter and social media is they'll see the ratings down a little bit and NASCAR's dead. It's not the same it used to be, yada, yada, yada. It's because it's on dirt and they hate the old fan, but what are you going to do? So let's talk about the NASCAR Cup Series standings. Things have bounced around so much. As we're going into this group of standings here, you have Alex Bowman and William Byron that have once again lost, what is it now, 60 points after they've got their 100 points back. So now they're basically down, or NASCAR got their, I don't know, they got 40 points back from their original 100 point. It's all jumbled up in this whole conspiracy that somehow we could go on another rant about that whole deal. But it's helped Ryan in the standings, I guess, a little bit here because Bowman is back down below him. So after this race at Bristol, which could have been a big swing in the points for Ryan, unfortunately, as you said, he finished 23rd in the race on the dirt. Currently in the 10th position in the NASCAR Cup Series standings, 70 points back from the leader, and it's a new leader this week, and that's your winner from Bristol, and that's Christopher Bell.
Where does add 20 points to Ryan? See where that puts him.
That would put him up in like 5th, 6th, or 7th, like around that range. So
there you go, because 3rd place to 23rd place. That's all I'm doing there. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So like he would have been, it would have been a pretty big swing in points there for him if he was able to get that second or third place finish in this race. And obviously, if the leaders would have Magical World taken themselves out, he got to win, it'd be even better. So, but still, I mean, it's again not funny, but it's crazy with all the bad luck we could call it, whatever you want to call it, mistakes that have been made this year with this team. Still in the top 10 in points, and that's with a severe lack of stage points, which is kind of the opposite of what they were doing last year. So still hanging around the top 10, 70 points back. It's not the 20 and 30 that we really wish we were. Maybe it's not leading the points like he was at points last year, but I'm still well within striking distance of 2 back-to-back races where you get stage points and good finishes. You can shoot right back up the leaderboard here. We mentioned going to Martinsville Speedway this weekend for the NASCAR Cup Series race. If you want to tune in to the weekend action here, it kicks off on Friday with the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on FS1. Then we move to Saturday, and we have Cup Series practice and qualifying at 4:35 p.m. Eastern Time. And unfortunately for Steve and some other folks out there, it's on FS2.
The practice... I'm sorry, the Cup practice is Friday, isn't it?
Saturday. Cup practice is Saturday at 4:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Friday is just truck practice, Xfinity practice, and the Truck Series race.
I thought I read it different. I'm sorry. Yeah. I thought I read the practice was one day and the qualifying was the next day.
Yeah, so you can catch practice and qualifying for the Cup Series Saturday, 4:35 p.m. Eastern Time on FS2. But the Xfinity Series race, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on FS1. And then Sunday, the big race day starts at 2 p.m., 3 p.m. Eastern for the NASCAR Cup Series race on FS1. Right now for Sunday, the forecast is in the 70s with the 50% chance of rain, according to NASCAR reporter and meteorologist and light keeper Bob Pockris. So I don't know what to say.
He's got a TikTok too.
So it's interesting the fact that it's in the 70s this year. Is this the race did you go to this race last year when it was snowy and rainy,
28 degrees and snowed on us? So
they're calling for beautiful temperatures in the 70s there in Martinsville, but there's a 50% chance of rain as of today. Ryan's
what's it looking like for Saturday? Because Saturday's the big day. Saturday's the big day because it sets the field. If he doesn't have qualifying, they use the matrix, and that's not good.
And for this race on a short track at Martinsville, you don't want to start in the back. Right now, 20% chance of rain, still in the 70s, so still much warmer. And honestly, if we're talking about a new short track package going to Martinsville here and a little bit warmer temperatures, that might result in a really good race, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So Ryan Blaney at Martinsville Speedway, I think we've said this a couple of times in the last few racetracks that we've been at, especially when they went to Phoenix, and then you had Bristol Dirt here where Ryan finished really well. One of his best tracks statistically is Martinsville. Average start of 7.8, average finish of 9.7. He has 7 top 5s, 8 top 10s in 14 starts. He has 1 pole from the spring race of the 2020 season. His last several races here, we'll go all the way back to 2019 just because the finishes are so good. 4th, 5th, 2nd, 11th, 4th, and 3rd. So he's coming into this race after finishing in the top 5 in both races of 2022. In 2021, he led 157 laps. And I think they unfortunately had a pit road miscue there that kind of stopped them from having a shot at winning that race. The pit crews are back this week. We had a pit road miscue in the previous race before Bristol there, so this is kind of another redemption race here. And, I feel like Ryan has some momentum. Like we were talking about the way he was talking on the radio before that final restart at Bristol. He was very energetic. He was pumped to have that opportunity to win. And I think he's moving into this race at Martinsville where he just hasn't gotten over the hump yet to get a victory there, that he might be in the right mental space. He has a pit crew that's going to come back motivated to prove themselves. And he has a race team led by crew chief Jonathan Hassler that's bringing really, really fast race cars to the track. And so far with this new short track package, they've also still been pretty speedy out there on track.
Yeah, I can't wait. Like you said, I can't wait to see what the new package does on. This is an actual, the half mile, it would look pretty good at Richmond. Let's see what it looks like here. Really worried about the weather on Saturday because I really want them to have a chance to qualify. We know what they can do when they practice and qualify. It'd be great to see him start near the front, and we know he's led a lot of laps here too. There have been races. There was a race a couple springs ago where it snowed the day before. Or it snowed on the Sunday, and then they raced on the Monday, and then he led like 200 some laps. So that's what we're really hoping to see is you get that going, get the confidence going, get the guys going in the right direction for Sunday.
Yeah. So again, if you want to catch this race. Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern time on FS1. If you want to tune into practice and qualifying, that's all happening on Saturday, but you have to have FS2 access to that channel, 4:35 p.m. Eastern time. So for once in the entire the third season of the Team Blaney podcast, I am excited to jump back and talk about the results in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. So we'll just make this the longest fantasy segment of all time because I actually had a good week for once that still ended up spoiled. So there was an opportunity here. If Ryan finishes in second or third, and if Kyle Busch finishes the race up front like he was most of the day, both of them end up spinning in the late stages of this race, I would have blown the entire league away and come home first without anybody close to me, I think.
No, I'd have beat you.
Now we'll see.
Well, I'd have had. Well, if all that happens and ifs and buts and candy and nuts, let me get my ifs and buts. If Kyle Larson doesn't have his issues and Ryan doesn't have his issues, those are two of my guys. I would have won a couple more matchups, and I'd have had about 40 more points too.
So let's talk about our guys here. My starting lineup, and I said to you in the middle of this race when I was in 50th. As they ran, I was like, I don't know how I am in 50th right now when I have an all-star lineup based on the way guys were running in the first couple stages here. I started Austin Dillon, who got me 52 points. Christopher Bell, also 52 points. Tyler Reddick, 48 points. Ryan Blaney got me 23 points, and if he would have finished where he was, that would have been like 43 points.
Yep.
Kyle Busch got me 19 points. If he'd finished where he was up there, that would have been another 35 to 40 points for me. I had Ryan Preece in my starting lineup based on what he was doing in the heats, based on what he was doing in stage one. I had him up there still. But after he had his incidents, I picked Ryan up out of my garage and put him up into the starting lineup there. So I swapped Ryan's, put Preece back in the garage and started Ryan instead. My featured matchups, I picked Logano over Busch. This is the only one I got wrong here, and it was only by a few positions here. I picked Reddick over Suarez. That was correct. I picked Bell over Larson. That was correct. I picked Briscoe over Bowman, and that was correct. So I ended up with a total of 224 points, which was, I don't even think that's my highest total of the year. I feel like I've been in the 200 plus category before and still finished outside the top 10. But for this week, that ended up being pretty decent as far as the top 10 goes. So what did you have? So we already know that you had Kyle Larson in your lineup and you had Ryan in your lineup. Who else did you have?
Yeah, Kyle Busch. I had Kyle Busch too. Austin Dillon, who ended up being the top point getter, actually. He had 52 points.
Yeah.
Tyler Reddick was 48 points. And then, like I said, Larson, Busch, and Blaney. Which, like you said, is a potential of like 30 plus more points. I finished with 192. So let's give me like 40 more points, and all of a sudden I'm in the top 10, just like you. I had Kyle Busch over Logano, got that right. I had Tyler Reddick over Suarez, got that right. Larson and Bell, I had Larson, that was not correct, and then I had Briscoe over Bowman. So I got 30 of the 40 possible points there too. So yeah, at one point when these guys were all not in trouble, I was looking pretty good in all three of the leagues I was in. So it is one of those things, especially you get to the third stage and you can't swap a person. That's really, really where it gets bad because, I may have swapped somebody or not wanted to swap somebody. It was too late. Like Larson getting in trouble in the third stage is no way I could swap to anybody else. So,
yeah, and quite honestly, I think we were actually talking about it as I was doing it, but I swapped the Ryans after the stage 2 during the break there, which I thought at that point it wouldn't let me change anymore. I don't know if it was just different because it was the dirt race or whatever.
Different,
but
it's different because it's the dirt race, and I tell you why. The red flag the dirt race.
Okay.
So if you watch the standings, like, okay, so the 9 cars that stayed out, correct?
Yep.
If you watch the standings for those 9 cars, they did not change until the green flag dropped.
That makes
to
sense.
start the third stage. So it still showed Tyler Reddick as the leader until they took the green.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's exactly why you were able to do that.
So I was lucky enough to remember to do it, and it was nice enough for you that you actually kind of gave me a reminder anyway. So to make the change, so I swapped the Ryans. That was a big move for me. So let's take a look at the.
Oh, you're welcome.
The top 10 in points earned here at the Bristol Dirt Race. Unfortunately for Steve, like he said, with that swing there, he went from running in the top 10 all the way down to 40th, and a tie for 40th here. A 5-way tie for 40th for the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League in points earned at Bristol. Here we also have a 4-way tie for 9th with the Dalai Lama 4, Epic Chickens 1916, Go RB12, Go 12 Go, all with 221 points in 8th. The most important team on this list, Team Blaney, host Adam. 224 points earned. In 5th, we have a 3-way tie for 5th. I think this just means a lot of people went heavy on the dirt race guys, and that actually worked out this year. But 3-way tie for 5th here with Blaring Idiots, Penske Fan 24, and Dr. Race Chaser, 233 points. It's cool to see Dr. Race Chaser back up here again. He's one of our followers on Twitter. He's also a really good follow on Twitter because he goes to races all over the place and posts photos and reports from that. So follow Dr. Race Chaser on Twitter as well. He did a really good week here in the Fantasy League. In the 4th position, Factory of Sadness 6, 235 points. In 2nd, a tie here, JD Racing and Math Mom 4, 243. And outright first position in points earned at Bristol Dirt, Waterbug, 246 points. So I think, like I said, if Ryan, even if it was just Ryan had finished where he probably should have finished in 2nd or 3rd, if I add those 20 to mine, I think I'm up there in the outright 2nd position. But as you said, ifs and buts, whatever. It didn't happen. I still should be pretty happy with the fact that I finally finished in the top 10. I think this might be the 2nd time I finished in the top 10 this year, but it's been a very long time since that happened. Must have happened in the 1st or 2nd race of the year. So really good points day for me, but I don't know what that means. I haven't even looked at the overall standings to see where I stand just yet, but I was down in the 40s, so it has bumped me up a little bit. I'm now in a tie for the 32nd position in the overall Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League standings with 1,438 points.
Hey, you took the lead. You took the lead in the household too.
That's the big trophy for me right here. You are still round out the bottom of the top 10 here in the 10th position. Mez 12, 1,529. 9th, Eric D 15, 1,540. 8th, Penske Fan 24, 1,545. 7th, Frygau 12, 1,551. 6th, Blaring Idiots 1,552. Tie for 4th here between Go Larson and Christian Dana, 1,559 points. In 3rd, the Nutty Gamer, 1,578. In 2nd, Epic Chickens 1916, 1,583. And the leader in the overall standings of the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League is Factory of Sadness 6 with 1,636 points. Pulling away a little bit here is Factory of Sadness. So again, we'll jump back again to Martinsville Speedway. There's a lot of guys that run really well here. We already brought up the fact that Ryan's run really well, but hasn't won yet. But he's been a pretty guaranteed top 5, top 10 finish driver probably in the last 6 or 7 races at Martinsville. He's probably somebody I'll at least have him in my garage. But like you said, we really need to see if they get practice and qualifying in, because I might be hesitant to start him if he does have to start deep in the field because of the metric qualifying system. Other guys that I'm looking at, Martin Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin. And, we're back to kind of a normal track, and I don't know how you could ignore what William Byron has been doing this year when they're running everywhere outside of the dirt race. So any other guys that you want to consider here? Any Penske teammates or any other Hendrick cars?
That, anything Hendrick, right? I mean, as long as they're not cheating real badly, they even when they're not cheating, they're running really well. But I'm hoping for the big weekend for Ryan. Bubba Wallace runs really well at Martinsville. He has some truck wins there.
Yep.
Martin Truex, I like that. It's he's really, really good there too. And it's Denny was really, really good there. So yeah, I mean, it really be real interesting to see how practice and qualifying goes, just because I want to see what this package looks like.
Yep.
Practice wise, see what the lap times look like. And then, see what, where you line up is really going to be key, because it's going to be even if the racing is a little better, it's still going to be a track position kind of race. So, just looking forward to Saturday, hopefully having the right weather. The one thing I saw on the weather report said the rain was going to be in the morning Saturday. So that would be good. They can get all that activity in the evening. It'd be great.
One thing to notice, I don't know if they had made this swap last year as well, is that this race at Martinsville is only going to be 400 miles. In prior, or 400 laps, sorry. In prior years, it had been a 500 lap race in both the spring and the fall. There's some consternation between ticket holders and people that have been going for a long time that feel a little bit cheated that they've taken 100 laps off of this, but I'm okay with it, because it creates a little bit more of a sense of urgency, and that can only mean good things when it comes to a race on a short track. So looking forward to this weekend, looking forward to this race at Martinsville. And I wish we didn't need to end another podcast by saying hopefully for a rebound for this 12 team that's been running so well. There's been some things out of their control that's ruined some of their finishes, some things in their control that's kind of hurt them a little bit in their finishes. But I think this is definitely a race where they can come in with a strong car, a strong setup, strong team. We already know they got a strong driver, and they can put some things together and get back into the hunt for this NASCAR Cup Series championship in 2023. But I think that pretty much wraps up things for this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. I want to thank you, everyone, once again for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about myself or co-host Steve, just listen to our very first episode that explores our Blaney racing fandom. You can interact with us on Facebook, Twitter, at Team Blaney, and on Instagram and TikTok, I guess. I hear we have a TikTok at team.blaney. Look for fun things that happen around that. Steve usually posts some stuff from the podcast and any other fun things we see throughout the week. And if you haven't checked out if we've seen some of our video episodes, you see Steve has a really cool wall behind him of some mini hoods. He has some really good videos on TikTok of those hoods if you want to get a close look at that.
Advanced Auto Parts this week is the paint scheme.
There you go.
So check out the Advanced Auto Parts paint scheme this weekend. That's a really sharp car.
And finally, we'd like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Established in 2018, this organization supports causes like the Alzheimer's Association and UPMC Sports Medicine through fundraisers, events, and membership in the Blaney Bunch fan club. To learn more, visit ryanblaneyfamilyfoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So, for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brussels. Check out the TikTok.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.